Welcome back to Bets of the North on Kings of the North. Doug Lesmerises and Tyler Shoemaker, and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays because it's snowing in the North. Woo! Got my Yuletide Village sweatshirt on. Have my goofy stocking Santa hat on. T-shoe one time when Ohio State played in the Rose Bowl in 2018. Urban Meyer's last year at Ohio State, and they had like the first media session was at Disneyland. I wore this goofy stocking hat to the interviews, and I asked Urban Meyer a question. He was like answering for like a minute, and then was like, "Oh, wait, is that you?" And I was like, "It's like a disguise." People thought I was actually goofy. It's just Doug.
You're goofy. That's for sure.
I also have an announcement to make. I had a great handle on the college football betting schedule a week ago. And I hope people rode with me because I've completely lost it. It's gone. It was there for a week, and it's gone forever. But T-shoe, it was great to have. Like, oh, it's hard to wear a crown and a goofy hat at the same time. I really thought I kind of had a good vibe on stuff. I went 3-1 on my best bets. We hit our plus money swing. We just missed on our $500 bet. So I think it's like one of those things where it was like a lightning bolt, and I'll never get it back. But anyway, I'm glad I had that experience.
I'm glad you had that too, because I had a terrible week. I had a terrible everything betting weekend last weekend, just encapsulated by Purdue scoring the late touchdown on the Penn State backups. I mean, it's an excuse, I guess, but like we definitely read that situation correctly. It just didn't go our way. You know, the one kind of silver lining there, though, like obviously it sucks that we lost our $500 bet, but I did have a lot of people message me saying like, hey, you know, by the time the show came out, the line was 10.5 and I got 10.5. So I won. So I'm at least happy for those people that were able to cash it. Unfortunately for us, you know, that's just kind of the nature of us. Nathan Baird was actually texting me, and I was like, yeah, that's just kind of the nature of being beholden to the lines when we record. It was 9.5. Wow. It went up to 10.5, and the 10.5 would have cashed. So that's how it goes.
So yeah, it was we took a Purdue team total under 9.5, and they scored on the Penn State backups to score 10 points. And the only bet in my best bets I lost last week was I had Notre Dame minus 22.5, and the Virginia offense scored in the final minute to cover that for Virginia. So I lost that as well. Cause I was at that Notre Dame game, and I was thinking like, oh man, we should have taken this Notre Dame game. But that was just as heartbreaking. I was like, well, we would have lost the exact same way. Are there any lessons? So congratulations to anybody who got that 10.5. We actually had a line move toward our favor on the big bet this week that we'll talk about in a second. Are there any lessons to be learned by two bets for us last week, including the big one, getting burned when we're betting on big favorites, right? And backups. It's just a thing that doesn't happen as much like in pro sports, that it's future accountants and teenagers gave up touchdowns that caused us to lose money. But like, it's our fault. We did it.
Yeah.
But when that kind of thing happens, do you think to yourself, like, we shouldn't have gone down that path? Or is that just part of it with college football? You have to try to factor in what happens if a team gets a big lead and puts their backups in.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely is our fault, but I mean, at least from my numbers perspective, because like I mentioned on the show last week, my numbers supported it. And, you know, all of garbage time and all of that of Penn State games and Purdue games have been baked into that. So, you know, we were accounting for it the best we could, but obviously you can't, you know, go out there and make tackles for the Penn State backup secondary.
Yeah. Okay, so we lost our $500 bet on that Purdue team total, but we did hit, and Penn State did help us out a little bit with this, because Penn State covered and was going to cover the actual spread of 29.5 against Purdue because they were ahead 42-10, but we jacked that line up a little bit to get more juice for our parlay, and we jacked it up to 33.5 that we had to cover with Penn State. And they went on the Penn State backups with Bo Prabula as the quarterback, went on a 7-play, 52-yard drive with 5 minutes left in the game to score a touchdown to make it 49-10. So initially that Purdue touchdown didn't only kill our $500 bet, but it looked like in the moment it was going to kill our parlay. So thank you to the Penn State backup offense for making sure we covered our adjusted line.
Yeah, but I mean, and we did. I mean, that was part of our handicap on that last week, though. Is James Franklin is a guy that like he's not going to just ram the ball into the line. He's going to play. Even with the big lead. So that was the handicap worked for us on that. It went against us the other way. It happens.
And then the Arizona State part of it, we were all over because we took Arizona State as the second half of that parlay at +8, and they won outright against Kansas State. So like we and they were up 24-0. Like that was over before it started practically. And even as Kansas State was trying to come back, I was starting to think like, oh man, because like Kansas State had like tried a field goal late to cut up to one score. They missed the field goal. It was like, oh man, but at least we're going to win our +8 for sure. So we nailed this at +344. That's not nothing. T-shoe. That's a pretty nice little plus money swing on that parlay.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you consider that we, like you said, we jacked that Penn State line up, another 4 points on what was already a big spread like that. Feel pretty good about that.
Yeah. So overall, then we are 7-5 on our $500 bets this year. We are up $827.59 on those bets. On the plus money swings, we're up over $600 on those plus money swings, which is pretty nice because those are fun to bet, but also like we're almost doing as well on those as we are on the other bets. And so overall, we still are up $1,444 here. And that is from a starting bankroll of $5,000. And the deal with what we are doing here is we started with a $5,000 bankroll. We said at the very least, at the end of the season, we're going to give $5,000 to Feeding America. And if we get more than that with our bankroll, we're giving all the bankroll. So it's minimum $5,000 or whatever we win. And we're giving that to Feeding America. You can find them at feedingamerica.com. And this is actually like a good time of the year for them. And it would be a time of the year if you guys are interested in this. It's always good to give the charity, but this is one of those they feed hungry people and they work with food banks all over the United States. But right now on their website at feedingamerica.org, it talks about that like this week, they're doing a drive where your money can go even a little further to helping people. Thanksgiving should be a time for full plates and happy memories, but this holiday season, more families face hunger than at any point in the past 10 years. Make a gift before Thanksgiving Day to help deliver twice as many meals to families for the holiday and beyond. So you can double your impact. They're doing a drive right now. They're trying to raise $250,000. They're about $100,000 short of that. They're trying to get this before Thanksgiving. So this is where we're giving our money at the end of the year. And it's a good time, T-Shoe, to just remind people as we get, many of us look forward to filling our stomachs next Thursday on Thanksgiving Day. It's a great time if you have the means to maybe reach out and help some people who aren't quite as fortunate.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm proud that we're doing that. I'm happy to be a part of that.
And we don't just have when we say the Penn State backups don't like hungry children. It's like we joke, but this is a good thing. Like we want to do this. Yep. We want to help people as much as we can, and we want to have a good time while we're doing it. So our best bets, we also are doing pretty good on. I was so close to 4-0, and even like I said last week, I had 6 originally, and I pulled some back. Some of those were really good. I like Syracuse as an underdog. They won outright. And anyway, I just loved it. So you and I are both now ahead on our best bets for the season, which is nice because there've been you and I have kind of been up and down a little bit. One somebody's hot and somebody's cold, but right now you're 1 ahead and I'm 1 ahead. So hey, pretty good. 21-20 for T-Shoe, 18-17 for Delay. All right, we're winning money, so we're going to do it again. And this is where it was a Thanksgiving and Christmas miracle line move. And I don't want to make light of miracles because they're super important. But sometimes when you're just sitting around and thinking about a bet and the spread's 7.5 and you're like, oh man, I don't know about this. And you had said you had already made this bet at 6.5 when it came out, and then it moved the other way. And it was like, oh, we like this, but 7.5 right in a week where we had just lost on a half-point line, right? We're that close. And then the line moved, but we missed it. And then you texted me today on Thursday, T-Shoe, as we record, and you said the Iowa State line is down to 7. And I sprinted to I think I was in the bathroom. I didn't even pull up my pants. I ran stumbling like George Costanza out of the bathroom to get this bet down before the line moved. We are taking Iowa State at Utah -7 for $500 of real money. -115, so a little extra on the juice, but man, I'd take that juice to get this baby at 7 instead of 7.5. This was one that you sent, Tishu. Why do you like this?
Yeah, I just realized I did not put this game in my notes, so I'm going to freestyle here.
Oh, nice. That's okay.
I was in a bit of a hurry today, but I mean, as we talked about, as we were texting, talking about this, Utah fought as hard as they could last week against Colorado and still just got ran out of the stadium when all was said and done.
Yes.
I just don't think Utah's very good. And even though it's late in the season, I know for a fact that odds makers still incorporate preseason priors into the opening lines, which is why we saw this line move from 6.5 up to 7.5, which, as I said, I bet this gave this out on Sunday at -6.5. I project 8.5. But if I look at more recent games and how these teams are trending, I'd make it 11. Iowa State -11. So I really like this. Both of the really sharp offshore books that I really monitor their line movement, both of those immediately jumped on Iowa State and pushed this line to above 7. So all signals just point towards Iowa State here. Iowa State's been playing better. I know they had the loss 2 or 3 weeks ago, but since then, I think they've been much better. And they're early in the season, we were betting. I felt like I was betting their unders every week. I feel like they're kind of putting some points up now. So I think Utah is going to be a corpse here. I think Iowa State's going to win comfortably here.
So I thought Iowa State had a nice bounce back last week after losing 2 straight. And I do think there are enough similarities between Colorado and Iowa State. Colorado's Brian Fremeau index offensive rating, Colorado's is 31. Iowa State's is 36. They both can throw the ball, and they both can be explosive throwing the ball. And Utah does have a good defense. Utah has a top 20, top 25 defense. Landis is a little cautious on this when I ran this by him. But even he picked Iowa State to cover this. And the Utah offense is just so beleaguered at this point, and Iowa State is still in the mix. I just accidentally flipped my ear. The Iowa State is still in the Big 12 mix. They need a lot of help, but they only have 2 conference losses. They're not out of it. They have to keep the pedal down. And so I sort of said this on the Thursday show, if you're a great program, you go win this game. And now they just have to win it by 1 score for at least get the push. Yeah. And it's style points aren't going to matter for them. It's not like they're trying to get in as a second Big 12 team if they're not the conference champion, but they just need to play well. And again, I was impressed because I took Colorado -11 last week as one of my best bets. I was impressed with Utah, and they lost by 25. So I feel very good about this. The Utah defense can only carry them so far. And when you have an opportunity with Iowa State, with Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins to score, and I just snap your fingers and drop a 75-yard touchdown on somebody, in addition to Rocco Becht, I think, being a good quarterback, they have multiple options in the run game. I just like it. And I'm, as a non-sharp, I'm surprised this isn't more like 10 or 10.5, given how things have been going lately.
Yeah, and I looked while you were talking there. I've got the Utah offense number 101 in the country.
Okay.
Defense is 30th. As you said, obviously they're definitely led by their defense, but their offense not only is worse than their defense, but it's bad. It's very bad. I mean, 101st, that's Iowa the past couple years range bad. Whereas I've got Iowa State 44th on offense and 19th on defense. So, I mean, better on both sides of the ball than Utah. So for us to only have to lay up a touchdown here without the hook, I really like that.
Yeah. They're without Brant Keithy, their great tight end. They've lost Money Parks. They're on their 3rd quarterback, right? I mean, Isaac Wilson was in, then he was out, now he's back in. So I mean, it's a real opportunity, I think. So I do feel good about this one. I feel good about this one. In relationships, Tishu, I feel like sometimes there needs to be someone who's the forgiver, and then the other person's who's the forgivee, right? That it's just like there needs to be some grace, right, in a relationship. I think that can be certainly a situation with spouses. And I do think in our relationship, Tishu, you are the forgiver and I am the forgivee, because I made a bet that that you didn't really like, but I made a little bet on it anyway, even though we talked about it and you told me no. So here's what we're doing.
I already know what this is going to be.
So the $100 plus money swing is actually a $75 plus money swing and a $25 please forgive Doug swing. So the first one is a 4-team parlay that you and I were trying to figure this out. Like, how do we do this? And I was messing around with some games and you were messing around with some games. And then like the 3-team parlay you sent me, like 2 of the 3 teams I had been looking at. So we agreed on this. 3 money lines and 1 plus 3. We're taking Michigan State on the money line against Purdue. They're a big favorite. We're taking Notre Dame on the money line against Army. I do think Army can give them a game, but I think Notre Dame is in a really good spot right now and playing very well. We're taking Syracuse on the money line against UConn. I like Syracuse a ton. You like them a decent amount. And then we're taking BYU plus 3 against Arizona State. They're at Arizona State. I actually think BYU is going to win that game, because I think BYU, as much as I picked Kansas to beat BYU last week, Kansas beat BYU because they did a push punt off a BYU guy's helmet. And I think BYU will bounce back. So we're taking the points on that. So those 4 teams in that parlay is plus 243. And I like doing this sometimes, Tishu. Just take teams that you think are going to win, have a really good chance of winning, and start pairing them up. So we're doing that, plus taking BYU. Let's roll it plus 243.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna say something else. I'm very curious what this forgiving bet's going to be. I think I know what it is, but no, I mean, I think these bets are pretty self-explanatory. These money line bets. I mean, you got 3 big favorites, and Michigan State's playing Purdue, who is probably the worst Power 4 team. Notre Dame's rolling. But I do agree with you that I think Army may cover that game. But I do think Notre Dame's going to win. I think Syracuse will beat UConn, but that's a game we kind of disagree on as far as the spread goes. And then BYU, we've talked a lot about them this year. I project them -2 here. Like, I know Arizona State is playing well and coming off a big win against Kansas State. That kind of makes me like BYU even more. That, like, BYU just recently lost. So, people are kind of out on them now. And Arizona State is riding high off this big Kansas State win. Like, I think situationally that screams BYU to me. So I was happy to put that in there. And we got, really good odds, I think, on that. So I'm excited. I think this one's going to cash for us.
Yeah, and I like going back and forth between maybe taking a swing on a pure underdog where you're just picking a 10 or 12 point or 14 point underdog to win, and then trying to put a parlay together where you're betting on some favorites. I really like these because I'm kind of the dumb guy better who's like, the favorites are definitely going to win. The favorites always win. Let me do a 14-team parlay of favorites. It's a sure thing. And obviously that's not the case. But when you find them, I like this because sometimes what feels obvious then is obvious, and then you just win. You get a couple obvious things in a row, and then, like, if we would have gone BYU on the money line here, we would have jacked up our odds a little bit. But now we're sort of picking an upset in with a bunch of favorites, and I'd much rather take the points here. So I feel very good about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, and we're getting a full field goal here, so it's not like we're taking BYU plus 1.5 as opposed to the money line. Like, we're getting a field goal with them. As you say, that gives us a little protection there with the 3 money lines. So I mean, when you're talking a 14 parlay, like, I'm happy to just throw that plus 3 on top of there, get the odds, jacked up even more. And like I said, I think this has a really good chance to cash.
Can I ask you a question about how betting works? As we're in week 13.
That's what we're here for.
Of our betting show. Yeah, I'm not certain that the co-host is supposed to be asking it, though. If we push on BYU and win on the other 3, does the whole bet push, or do we win the 3-team parlay?
Because we placed it on DraftKings, I believe that leg would just be removed, and they would recalculate the odds on a 3-team parlay.
Okay.
Now, for everyone, watching, listening out there, make sure if you're placing that at a different book, you need to make sure you understand your book's house rules on parlays, because sometimes if one pushes, like it voids the whole thing, like Doug said. So definitely check and make sure you read the fine print. But I'm pretty sure that at DraftKings, they would just remove that leg from the parlay and we would get credit for a 3-team win.
Okay. I mean, that's not going to happen. We're going to win all 4, but we're going to win all 4. Yeah, we have to be careful. Okay. So those are our 2 real money bets. And again, this is for charity, for feedingamerica.com, which is where our winnings will go. And if for some reason there's not winnings, and this would be quite a collapse here at the end, if there's not actual winnings, we'll give at least $5,000 to Feeding America at the end of this betting season. Let's start with your other best bets, Tishu. I do want to say, so you were 1-3 on your best bets last week. You had a crazy almost comeback that I was really following. You had Louisiana -7, and they came back. They were
Doug, before we get to Tishu's bet, I think you're forgetting one thing.
What am I forget? Oh, yeah. I'm too scared to get yelled at, Mike. This is why I forgot it.
He was trying to just sweep that under the rug.
Yeah. He was just going to let that slide.
Are you okay that I did this? So it's actually a $25 play, Mike. It's a $25 play at plus 320 on Florida on the money line against Ole Miss. So sorry, I forgot about it. So, but here's the thing, Tishu, and this is be in your forgiving mode, please. If you could be in your forgiving mode about this. I wanted to bet this. Landis and I both picked Florida to beat Ole Miss straight up on our Thursday show. But also, you said in your heart you wanted to do this. And so your math is against it, and you don't like the spot, but you're okay with the idea of it in your betting heart. And hearts matter, Tishu, especially during the holiday season.
They do matter. This is a game that, like, my brother's a big Florida fan. I know I've mentioned that before. Like he and I were texting about this earlier in the week, and I was like, man, like this spot is just really tough for them to expect Florida to bounce back. Huge win against LSU last week, to then turn around and play Ole Miss, who is pretty much inarguably a top, 5 or 7 team this year. Coming up, am I right? They're off a bye. That's right?
Yes, Ole Miss is off a bye.
They're off a bye. Yeah. So, I mean, that is just a tough ask for Billy Napier's crew, especially when DJ Lagway's like not 100%. Like that's going to be a tough ask. I hope this cashes. I really do. I hope this cashes.
Yeah.
But everything from a betting mathematical standpoint tells me that I should play Ole Miss. I haven't, and I don't know that I'm going to because I don't want to. But yeah, I'm very conflicted on this one.
Ole Miss is a 10-point favorite. They're a 10-point favorite. They're in the swamp. DJ Lagway in the second, among Power 4 quarterbacks this season, is the best deep ball passer in the country, has the best passer rating on throws of 20 yards or more. We know Ole Miss wants to throw it all over the yard, but I think DJ Lagway can do that too. And this would simplify the SEC playoff picture a little bit if you just kind of toss Ole Miss out. So this is a heart and head. And it's like the thing that it would your numbers aren't saying it, but also it's like, well, Florida just did this. Florida just beat LSU. And so are they going to do it 2 in a row? And that's one of these things where I think often the right way to think of it is something happened, so it's not going to happen again. Right. So like, don't go to the well too many times, but I went to the well. Don't be mad. I went to the well.
You are at the well. So, like you. Yeah, that's fine. I forgive you. I really do hope this cashes.
So anyway, thank you for the reminder, Mike. That's my bad that I forgot what was happening on the show. So I really should be more aware of what's happening on the show that we host. And so those are all of our bets officially now. We have the $500 bet, we have the $75 bet, we have the $25 bet. And the reason that I like this Tishu is the $25 bet would pay 105 total overall. So like we would get, even with the $25 bet, we'd be ahead on the plus money swings for the week, right? And so I thought it was, and if this misses, but we hit the other one, we're still ahead. Like it's still, we have 2 chances. We hit 1 of 2 on these and we're ahead on the plus money for the week. So Is this what you thought it would be when I said I have a thing to forgive me for?
It's not. I forgot about this one. This makes sense now, but I thought it was going to be Syracuse is what I thought it was going to be.
I was definitely looking at like Syracuse team totals over 56 and stuff like that. They're like trying to, can we get plus 900?
And Syracuse, like, you know what? Like Tishu, I actually went Syracuse alt line minus 42.5. Like I thought that's what it was going to be.
Yeah, I was dancing as hard as you could dance on that dance floor because Kyle McCord is going to set the Syracuse single season passing mark this week, almost certainly. If he has another 300-yard passing game, he'll do it. And I just think Fran Brown might want to get everybody warmed up for that Miami home game next week and drop a 50 spot on UConn. But I get it. Numbers matter. And this is one of those things. We try to be a math and vibe show, but in our own picks, as we now finally get to the best bets, my apologies. I had a good week last week and you had a bad week because last week was a vibes week, right? It's like, what went wrong for Tishu? It's like the vibes went against the math. So like, I don't know what to tell you. So like once in a blue moon, this kind of thing happens. So on the best bets, you had Louisiana -7. They were down 24-3, I think. And then we're storming back and they got back to 24-22 in the final minute with a touchdown, going for 2 to tie it. And I was like, they're going to come back, tie it, and then win in overtime to at least push your bet. And then they missed the 2-point conversion. So that didn't work. But like you could see the way Louisiana played in the second half. It was like, that was what Tishu was betting on. And then you bet on Hawaii. And I believe you are in favor of their statehood being revoked at this point.
I tweeted this. I think in the middle of that game, or no, I tweeted this on Sunday. It is insane. When I look through my like game grades on the season, like the absolute lowest, worst game grades that teams have had this year, you can pretty much bet that I had a best bet on that team. Hawaii, I didn't comb through it like with a fine tooth comb, but at a glance. Yeah. That Hawaii performance was the worst opponent adjusted performance of the season for any team. And they were a best bet of mine. Like, I mean, what am I supposed to do with that? Ari texted me and was like, well, at least if you're going to be wrong and know you're wrong in the second quarter so we can turn it off. And I was like, yeah, exactly. That was never close. They never had a chance. They should have just stayed on the island.
Yeah. You were coming on here talking about how Timmy Chang, their head coach, cares about covering the spread. Then they got a 50 bomb dropped on their head.
He should care about scoring more than 3 points.
All right. So that's bottom. That's rock bottom for Tishu. You're back with your best bets. What's your best bet number 1 this week?
So I like the Texas-Kentucky under. This is one that I looked at hard all week. Wasn't sure what the market was going to do. Saw the market start to drop on this, so I grabbed it under 46.5. I project 42. These teams combined this year are 12-5-2 to the under. So these are two very under teams. You know, if you buy into that sort of thing. When I look at their games against Power 4 opponents, so not overmatched teams where they're just going to hang a 50 spot on them. Like against Power 4 opponents, their games, both teams have only averaged around 43 points a game this year. So under this number. And then obviously with this being the week before rivalry week, it's a look ahead spot for both teams. So I don't think Texas, even if Texas is able to create separation with Kentucky, which may or may not happen. I mean, we saw Georgia obviously struggle with Kentucky. Even if Texas gets separation, like I don't think they're incentivized at all to like run this thing up. Like I think they're going to be happy to win, 31-10 or whatever, because they've got Texas A&M on deck, and I know a lot of people think A&M might beat them next week, so they just need to win and get out. So I think that has to factor in whether you're betting a total or a side this week. Like you got to look at that sort of thing. So I really like this. I think this is going to go way under this.
I could imagine an off-season Tishu investigation into the week before rivalry week trends, because I buy the philosophy of everything you're saying, that everybody's in a look ahead spot when you're trying to beat your rival the next week. I mean, not everybody finishes with a rivalry, but a lot of teams do. But Kentucky, Louisville, and Texas A&M certainly are that. And so are we going to get like two high flying offenses here? I would say, no, I like this bet under 46.5. And Kentucky, I know Kentucky at Texas. I think I saw something like this is like the furthest west they've played a football game. Like this is foreign territory for Kentucky. So they've had a weird year. As you said, they gave Georgia a game. They beat Ole Miss, but they're not good. So like the other thing is they're not good. Week to week, they're not good. So this has a chance to be, they've played they lost to Tennessee 28-18, which would be half a point under this. Like that seems like exactly right to me. 24-10, 20-13, 20-17, 13-12, 31-6. Kentucky's played these games all year exactly like this and scored somewhere from 35 to 45. So I'm for the total. So I'm very much in favor of this. Okay. Next one is an Army Notre Dame total that I'm intrigued by. Which way you're going on this, but I think I also agree with it.
Yeah, I knew I wanted to be involved in this game in some capacity because my numbers and the market kind of aligned on both the over and Army.
Okay.
But I didn't want to bet against Notre Dame because I definitely see a scenario which plays into why I took the over. I definitely see a scenario where Notre Dame can just go off and do what they've done here over the last 6 weeks and just hang 45 on Army. So I'm like, well, okay, if that's what I think, like I don't want to bet on Army, even though my number indicates to do so. Let me take the over because for starters, 45 is the key number in totals here. So we're getting below that, betting the over.
Yep.
I project 46.5, and honestly, that feels very light. I think a lot of that is, well, not a lot of that, but obviously Army and I get my service academies mixed up. Army and Air Force already played. So like you got that game factored in there.
Yeah.
When I took that game out and looked at Notre Dame versus Power 4, plus their Navy game, and then Army versus FBS opponents.
Yeah.
Those games average 51 points a game. So,
okay.
7 points over this basically. So I like that. We talk every week about style points. Notre Dame not being in a conference, like they're fighting for their seeding. So like they need to just come out and beat the crap out of a team that I think most people think is pretty good. So Army can hang, Army can score. Their quarterback is great.
Yep.
So I didn't want to bet against Notre Dame, but I do really like over 44.5 here.
And I mean, the one thing you get afraid of is these long Army drives that take forever and take 14 minutes off the clock. But as long as they score, I think these teams could trade some drives like that, and you still wind up with like a 27-20 game that hits the over. So I don't even think you need like the best case scenario to hit the over on this.
No, yeah, and we talk a lot about like, okay, when you're betting an over, can one team get you most of the way there? And then, like I said, I think Notre Dame could get this by themselves. I don't think they necessarily will, but they could. And I look to Notre Dame games where the totals have been in the 40s have averaged 55 points a game. So it's like odds makers set these low totals and then Notre Dame goes crazy. So I really like the over here.
Okay. Two efficient offenses. I think that they will score enough. And your last one is a classic T-shoe. What? Don't know who this team is or what they do, but I'll take it. It's Texas State -20 against Georgia State.
Yeah, this is another one that I bet on Sunday -18.5, I think is what I got. I still like it at 20. I project 21.5. So we're still, on the right side of a key number here. Texas State, like when I did my power rating update on Sunday, I literally had to like go back and double check because I have Texas State 26th in the country now in my power ratings.
Okay.
They need this for the Sun Belt standings because they're still in the mix, but like if they lose this, like they're pretty much done. So they need this win. So I don't expect them to like no show here. Like they're still very much incentivized to show up and play. Georgia State, like I think most notably beat Vanderbilt, which everyone is like, how did that happen? But looking at what they've done on the road this year, they're 0-3 on the road, failing to cover by 5 points per game. And when I look at how these teams have performed lately, because that Vanderbilt performance does a lot of heavy lifting with Georgia State's rating. So looking at their last 3 games, Georgia State's game grade is 17 points below average, below FBS average. Texas State is +14. So that's a 31-point discrepancy. That's a little bit skewed by them hanging 58 on Southern Miss last week, and Southern Miss sucks. So even if you wanted to take the median there, their rating has been 8.5, which still would put this at 25.5. So
Okay.
I really like Texas State to show up. I think they're going to blow Georgia State out.
Okay. 3 best bets from T-Shoe this week. Also 3 best bets for me. My first one is, as I said, I picked Kansas to beat Colorado. So I will take Kansas plus 2.5 against Colorado. You don't love this so much. Is that right?
I don't. My number actually is right on the 2.5.
Okay.
But all the kind of surrounding market things that I look at indicate that Colorado would be the side here if I had to make a play. So that's why Kansas has turned into the team I thought they would be from day one. So like it's hard. It's hard to get a gauge there. So I definitely don't blame you for taking this based on what they've looked like over the last 3-4 weeks. But I mean, Colorado from a consistency standpoint obviously has been the better team throughout the season. But it's who's going to show up on Saturday, and I don't hate it. Like I said, my number is right in line with the market here.
Yeah. I like Colorado, but I've had huge Kansas vibes for a couple weeks. The second one I'm very curious about, I have Michigan Northwestern under 36.5. When I picked this game on our Thursday show, I picked 18-10 as the score. Michigan has thrown 10 touchdown passes this year. Northwestern has thrown 5. Will Johnson is not going to play in this game for Michigan again. So I don't know. I mean, Northwestern has at times thrown the ball okay, but Michigan really needs this game. And I think you are going to get the best of Michigan, and the best of Michigan up front can still really give people problems. So I could see this either as like a score that I picked, that it's kind of close, but both teams don't score much, or I could see 31-0 Michigan or 31-3 Michigan. So again, if I feel like I can make a total bet and imagine 2 completely opposite results, but both would win for me, that's why I like this one. What do you think?
This is one where I agree with the vibe that like this is an under game. And at the opening number, I would have liked the under. It's ticked down just a little too much here. I mean, you're still getting it above 35, which is good, but I would have wanted it at 38 or better. Again, obviously, we're beholden to what the lines are right now. But I definitely wouldn't bet the over here. Is what I'm saying. Like, okay. I think you're on the right track. It just, I don't love that number, but I think Michigan getting Northwestern the week after they play Ohio State is huge. Like, I definitely can see, like you said, Northwestern just like getting completely shut out in this game. Like, I think that's definitely on the table.
Yeah. Okay. Last one is Kansas State minus 8.5 versus Cincinnati. I just see a bounce back spot for Kansas State. They just had everything go wrong. They've had 2 games this year where everything has gone wrong in their losses to BYU and Arizona State. They threw a pick on their first pass last week. They got stopped at midfield on a 4th down. They fumbled in the open field on a ball getting punched out. I don't think that's who they actually are. Cincinnati's lost 3 in a row. This is not an anti-Cincinnati pick. This is a Kansas State gets stuff back together and tries to show who they are pick. So I like Kansas State to look like the best version of itself, and I'll take that at minus 8.5 at minus 108.
I am the farthest thing from having a handle on Cincinnati. Like I have bet against them. I bet on them. I feel like I cannot grasp who Cincinnati is. Yeah. So I don't hate this. My number is Kansas State minus 7 on this game. So again, like, in the ballpark, but technically would pick Cincinnati, but like I wouldn't bet on Cincinnati and feel great about it here. This is one that I would want no part of.
Yeah. Okay. We'll end on that note. On Tishu saying I would want no part of Doug's bet. So that sounds like about right. So Tishu, we're still up. I think we have a big finish ahead of ourselves too. Right? Don't you feel it? Big finish.
I feel really good this week. Are we going to talk about our bonus bet that we talked about?
Oh yeah, I keep forgetting there's so many things I'm forgetting on the show. We do have a bonus bet. I am in Ohio, so we can't make bets like this, but in lots of other states you can. Ohio this season said no more college player prop bets, so you cannot make bets on any individual college player. But some states you can, and there is an Ohio State player that you really like in this Indiana game for a touchdown bet. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I can't even take credit for this. This is a KOTN, Landis, and Doug T-shoe collaboration on this because
mostly Landis,
today,
but yeah.
Today I'm working and I'm listening to you and Landis talk and I think it was on Kings of Columbus actually, and you guys were talking about Emeka Egbuka and how Ryan Day kind of hinted that like they may want to really use him. So I was like, man, that's a really good idea. Let me look at that. I went back and looked. Emeka Egbuka in their what I consider like last handful of like big games. So like Oregon, Penn State this year, Notre Dame last year, Michigan last year. Against Oregon this year, he had 10 catches and a touchdown. Penn State, 3 catches, a touchdown. Notre Dame last year, no touchdowns, but 7 catches. So they were trying to feed him. And then the Michigan game last year, 3 catches and a touchdown.
Okay.
You can get Emeka Egbuka anytime touchdown. As I saw it as high as plus 125. I think more widely available is plus 110. Anything plus money for him to score. Like I think it is like as close to a lock as I possibly could feel in betting. Emeka Egbuka is going to score a touchdown in this Indiana game.
Okay. So that's a little bonus if you can bet it in your state. We hope you have a winning weekend in college football. We hope you enjoy being part of what we're doing here on Bets of the North. Next week on Thanksgiving week, we will drop this show on Thursday morning so that you make sure that it gets out of the way so you can have your Thanksgiving dinner and hang out with your family and friends. But also, like, if you're trying to bet stuff on Thursday and Friday and whatever, like, all the bets will be in. So we will see you next Thursday morning. For now, thanks as always to our producer, Mike Urostowski, for making us look good, sound good, and reminding me what I'm supposed to do to run the show. So thank you, Mike, for that. Thanks as always to our guy, T-Shoe, the betting expert. I'm Doug Lesmerises, and that was Bets of the North.